Our brains are wired for safety. They're wired for comfort. They're wired for certainty. They're wired for control. Put up your hand here if there's ever been something you knew you should do, you wanted to do, you knew it was the right thing to do, and yet you held back. Fear creates the gap between what we're doing and what it is that we can do, between who you are and who it is that you can be.
Well, courage is a skill, and like all skills, it can be learnt and mastered with practice.
Margie Warrell knows a thing or two about conquering fear, had a gun to her head during a robbery. She backpacked solo in dangerous corners of the world and swam with piranhas. And that's just the beginning for this mother of 4.
So what does it mean to have brave leadership? I mean, at the core of leadership, of great leadership, is courage. It is being willing to take a risk for something that's more important than our own egos.
You don't have to look very far to see that this world right now needs your courage, not your perfection. Today I want to share with you 3 ways that you can step into your courage gap between where you are and where you can be. 1 is resetting your focus. Secondly is challenging your certainties. And finally, taking the chance, risking the thing that you're afraid to risk.
What I learnt over those years is that growth and comfort can't ride the same horse.
You might make mistakes. Things may not go the way you'd like them to go. But what is it costing you? What do you put at risk when you don't? What is that hidden timidity tax?
Find the gold of learning that comes from the moments that you don't get it right, because it's in that gold that you can do better and that you can show up as more of the kind of person that others want you to be and that you want to be.
You have no idea what you're capable of doing if you don't dare to do more than you have done before.
And I think at the end of life, the biggest tragedy is that we never get to meet the person that we might have been.
So as you move forward, I invite you to lead with courage, because the future, the opportunities of disruption and uncertainty will always go to those who are willing to step forward amid their fears and amid the risks, who aren't defined by failure, but use it to learn faster so they can do more, grow more, but most importantly, they can lead more. A few years back, my husband was coming up to his 50th birthday. And I said, what would you like to do for your 50th birthday? He said, you know, I would love to go on a safari in Africa. That'd be really cool. And one of my kids, Ben, said, I mean, safari in Africa is great. I mean, that's good. But wouldn't it be really cool to climb Mount Kilimanjaro? And we all looked at him and said, Ben, we live at sea level and we don't climb mountains for fun on weekends. Like, we're not even near altitude. So that's it's really high. He goes away, he does this presentation. He puts it all together, complete with the Rocky soundtrack music. He does a presentation to the family. Imagine if at Dad's birthday, our whole family climbed to the rooftop of Africa, one of the world's 7 summits, from which you can look down onto the savannas of the Serengeti. And imagine for the rest of our lives, our family looked back on this moment and said, we did this for Dad's 50th birthday. Imagine the magic and the power and the bonding we would have as a family. And by the end of that, I'm like, I'm in, Ben. And my other kids were like, it sounds really hard, but okay, we'll do it. And so we set off 7 months later for Tanzania to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Anyone here climb Kilimanjaro? 1, 2, yes. You probably did it in a little less time than us. So our guide suggested that we take the longer route to get to base camp. We had 4 teenagers at the time, 13, 14, 17 and 18. Took us 4 days to get to base camp. That wasn't so hard, but once you got to base camp, it's about 17,000 feet, and that thin air, that lack of oxygen, we were feeling it. And on summit day, we got up early, and I said to the kids, have lots of this oatmeal stuff that we had, have several bowls, it's going to be a big day. Within about 30 minutes, my youngest son, Matthew, was vomiting everywhere. He's like, good idea on the oatmeal, Mum. Within another 30 minutes, Ben, he was vomiting. I felt like throwing up, but I did, and I plowed on for another 6 hours before I threw up. I managed 1 granola bar. That's all I could have. And the water, we had our guides. Slowly, slowly, for those who've climbed Kilimanjaro in Swahili, is pole, pole, slowly. We were walking about this fast. And my heart was beating out of my chest. I could literally, if I was going to die of a heart attack, that was the day. And after 9 hours, 9 long, grueling hours, we got to the top of Kilimanjaro. And this is the only time we smiled all day. I share this with you because so often we let our fear of what could go wrong keep us from going out and taking actions to make things more right, to do great things. So what's one thing you'd like to do this year? So a few years ago, I had a girlfriend said, do you want to go out for the morning and it'll be really magical? We're going and do a Cirque du Soleil trapeze experience. And I was like, sounds really cool. So I went off to circus school. Anyone done that? Yes, okay. Probably better than me. Anyway, I thought this can't be that hard because, heck, when I was 19, I actually jumped out of a plane at 5,000 feet. So, 25 feet above the air. Easy peasy. Yeah, not even going to think about it. I climbed up the rope ladder. I got to the platform at the top. I was harnessed up. I had this strong Cirque du Soleil looking guy behind me, holding me. I had to reach out and grab the bar, and then I was going to be, swinging through the air. They were going to video it, put it on Instagram. It was going to be really cool. And so I got up there. As I started climbing up, I got to the top, and I looked down, and even though I intellectually knew I couldn't die, I started shaking. I got really scared, and I was standing there, and I wanted to cry, and I wanted to go back down. And then I could hear these voices from beneath yelling out, find your courage, stop playing safe, you've got this. And I could hear the smiles in their voices because they were the titles of my books. And I decided I wanted to unfriend all my friends. But maybe it was fear of professional humiliation as the woman who helps people be courageous, winning out over fear of falling to my certain death. But I reached out, I grabbed that bar, I swung through the air, I let out the biggest scream, and I'm going to spare your ears. And I had affirmation of a long-term suspicion that I was not supposed to run away and join the circus as a kid. Our brains are wired for safety. They're wired for comfort. They're wired for certainty. They're wired for control. Put up your hand here if there's ever been something you knew you should do, you wanted to do, you knew it was the right thing to do. Maybe it was speak up, or it was make a change, take a chance, and yet you held back. Fear creates the gap between what we're doing and what it is that we can do, between where we are and where we can be, between who you are, each of you as individuals, with a unique mix of talents and passion and purpose and experiences and hard-won wisdom, and who it is that you can be. a psychologist called William James said, most people live in a restricted circle of their potential. And as Googlers, the very fact that you are in this room tells me that you have amazing array of collective talents and potential to do extraordinary things, to bring, not just to bring back or to restore a sense of this Google magic. And, you know, as the comment that was just read out, someone said, we want to get back to how it was. But actually, there's no going back. There is only ever going forward. But that is going to require you to do things that in a little part of your brain is not going to want to do. In a moment, do I speak up? Do I try this? Do I challenge? Making decisions. 2/3 of you said, decisions aren't made as fast as they need to be for us to serve our clients in the best possible way. And yet, why is that? Because we're afraid of making a wrong decision. Our fear of making a wrong decision keeps us making a right decision, but there is actually a cost to that. And so today I want to share with you 3 ways that you can lean in, step up, step forward, and do the very thing you're entirely capable of doing, whether that's making a decision, whether that's having a conversation, in the moments that a part of you will be like, don't do it, don't do it. Good news and bad news. Who wants the good news first, bad news? Bad, okay. The bad news is some of you may not be ready yet. It's a sad, but it's realistic truth. Not everyone is ready to step forward and step into that gap between what they're doing and what they can do. The good news is that every single one of you has the capacity to grow in your courage. And courage has got 2 elements. One is the management of our fear, because sometimes, like me on that trapeze, I was more afraid than I needed to be. I actually couldn't have hurt myself. It's more dangerous crossing a street here in New York. So one part of courage is managing our fear. Our nervous system is a nervous system. And the second part of it is being so anchored to purpose and who it is you want to be and what you stand for, that you are going to step forward and take action even though there are risks, even though you do feel afraid, even though there's a chance people mightn't like what you say, even though there's a chance you might get the decision wrong, even though there's a chance you could fail or fall short. And so when it comes to growing your courage, every single person has the capacity to build courage. It's actually like a skill, like learning to bake souffle, or learning to code, or learning to ride a bike, or to become a trapeze artist. The more you practice it, the better you get at it. So all of you have the capacity for that. It's just that it's not very comfortable. So some of you might have picked up that I didn't grow up around these parts. I actually grew up in the South, the deep South. South of the Mason-Dixon line, south of the equator, in the southern part of Australia. I'm assuming we don't have any Australians in here, but we do. Awesome. Woo! Everybody, please, after I say Aussie, Aussie, Aussies, you have to say oi, oi, oi. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. Aussie. Oi. Aussie. Oi. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. That's for you. So I grew up on a dairy farm. My dad milked cows every morning and every evening for 50 years. Dairy farming is not lucrative unless you have a mega farm, and we did not. And I'm actually the big sister of 7. And I was desperate to get a horse. And so when I was coming up to my 11th, 12th birthday, I was just like, please, I really want to get a horse. And what I realized is that we were unlikely to get a horse because there was drought, it was wearing on, money was tight. My mum had just had a 6th child. So my dad did the best next thing he could. He went into a raffle, 20 cents a ticket or 6 for $1. And I did the best next thing that I could figure out what to do to increase the odds of us winning this horse. And so I prayed, dear God, I will stop being mean to my sister. I will stop stealing from my mother's secrets chocolate stash, Tim Tams, if any of you know that. She used to hide them in the back of the freezer behind the peas so that no one would find them. I found them. Anyway, we won my sixth horse, my horse in that raffle. In fact, my little sister did. She was 2, so I owe her a horse, but I took the horse. And he went from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds flat, often leaving me on the ground behind him. But I was determined to learn to ride this horse. I knew there was no other horse coming, and that thing about be careful and never, look a gift horse in the mouth. It wasn't that he was old, it was just that he was wild, crazy from Australia's snowy mountains. But every morning before school in my one-room schoolhouse, I was actually the smartest kid in my grade. Every year I got the prize because I was actually the only kid in my grade. Every morning before school, I would go out and I'd bridle him up and saddle him up. And every afternoon after school, I would do the same. And over the days and the weeks, even though I felt nauseous walking out to that paddock because I was scared I was going to get thrown off again, my fear waned, my confidence and my competence grew. And within about 18 months, I was competing in and occasionally even winning in the barrel race competitions at the local gymkhanas. And I share that with you because what I learned is that growth and comfort can't ride the same horse. And courage and comfort can't ride the same horse. And for you to do what is possible for you individually and collectively cannot be done when you're sticking with the familiarity of the known, when you're sticking with what you've done before, when you're sticking with what feels comfortable. And if you look at where you're going here, where you want to get to, we need to go from comfort to agility, entitlement to empowerment, siloed thinking, big G thinking, building consensus, leading with influence, and something I'm going to dive into a little more, playing not to lose, which is a fear-based mindset of protecting what we have, to an offensive, courage-based mindset of playing to win. So how do you do that? At the core of it all is continually choosing growth over comfort, choosing courage, choosing the brave path, choosing to do what is right over what feels comfortable and where you can't mess up. If you don't put your hand up, if you don't speak up in a meeting, if you don't make the decision, it's like, well, I can't make a wrong one if I don't risk it. Yeah, but what we often get wrong in our brains is that we discount the future. We treat inaction as though that's protecting us from failure, when actually timidity, letting fear call the shots, exacts a steep hidden tax, a slow leakage of value, a lack of ideas, a lack of moving forward, learning, innovation, all of these things. So Venn diagrams, we love Venn diagrams. Here are 3 different ways that you can step into your courage gap between where you are and where you can be. One is resetting your focus, because what you focus on expands. So the good you can do, the purpose you want to live into, the potential that you want to bring and develop. Secondly is challenging your certainties. You don't know what you're wrong about. We all like to think that the way we see the world is the way it is, the way you see Google, your customers, how you deliver things, that's the right way. But we are really blind to our own blindness. And finally, taking the chance, risking the thing that you're afraid to risk. So early on, I know that one of Google's big values was do no evil. And then it was changed, right, to do good. Am I getting that right? And it's because I think it was a good decision. Because what we focus on expands. Energy goes where attention flows. And our brains, and Esther said this yesterday, are wired to focus on the negatives, on the deficits, on what we don't want, and what we hope won't happen, and rather than on what we do want and what we can do and what's possible. And so for you, think about over the course of any day, when you're going through your day and your work, where are you putting your focus? What are you putting your attention on? Are you putting it onto what you hope won't happen, or what it is that you really want to make to happen? And so where do you need to reset your focus and get it really clear on what it is you want to achieve, on who it is you want to be? Last night, Esther did a little exercise where she got you to get clear about what would be something really exciting. What's a goal that you have for yourself? What's a vision? You know, where there is no vision, I'm sure it says somewhere in the Bible, where there's no vision, the people perish. But for you individually, any area of your life, in Google, outside Google, where you don't have a clear vision of what you want, is a little bit like a ship at sea. It's at the mercy of the tides and the currents and the winds versus this is where we're going. There is no favorable wind for a sailor who hasn't set their course. So for you, getting clarity about what it is you want to achieve, the impact you want to make, the good that you want to do. Your desire to achieve something good, a positive outcome, has to exceed your fear of a negative outcome. Otherwise, fear, that playing to lose, avoiding the bad outcome, is going to call the shots. So what does that look like? If you think back 100 plus years ago, did you know the smartest minds at the time said it is impossible at the Royal British Physics Society, it is impossible to get a heavier than air machine off the ground. It's just a physical impossibility. And all of the Oxford graduates were like, absolutely, they all agreed. But a couple of bicycle repairmen believed that it was possible, and they were focused on making it so, and they put all of their energy and all of their creativity into that. And look what happened. I mean, many of you flew in here for this gathering. So often our brains are focused on what is, what's directly, and from a leadership lens, leaders listen from the level of what is. What are people thinking? Just then, Kristen was talking about, this is what people are saying. This is what is right now. Then there's what's likely to be. That's about probabilities. We manage from forecasts of the future. What are the market trends? What's going on? Who are the competitors? What do we think the policy environment's going to be? We need to manage from probabilities. But real leadership, the best leadership, comes from a place of possibility. It's not focused on what is or what can be, but what could be. The start of the 60s, when JFK said, at the end of this decade, we want to get a man on the moon. He expanded what people saw as possible. He rallied people behind this vision that tapped into the brilliance of incredible thinkers to get a man on the moon. But the same is true for you. What's possible? What is it that inspires you? Don't just operate from a place of default, but by design.
Have you ever thought, if I just had the guts, I'd speak up, I'd make that change, I'd take that chance? Have you ever wished for more courage? If it were easy to defy the gravitational pull of the status quo, more people would. But I'm here to tell you that all the courage you have ever admired in others lives in you. And I'm going to help you find it, beginning with a horse riding lesson. Growing up on a small dairy farm in the Aussie bush, I was horse crazy. But prolonged drought left little money to buy a horse. So my dad did the next best thing. He went into a horse raffle. 20 cents a ticket, 6 for $1. For weeks leading up to that raffle, I was on my knees. Dear God, please let us win that horse. Please, God. Well, it's true, be careful what you pray for, because we won a wild Brumby from Australia's rugged snowy mountains who went from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds flat, often leaving me on the ground behind him. But my mission to master that horse was greater than my fear of him throwing me off. And so every day I would go out to the paddock and I would saddle up my horse. Day after day, week after week, my confidence grew and my fear waned. And within a year, I was winning local barrel races. The lesson: courage and comfort can't ride the same horse. Courage has been defined in lots of ways, but my favourite is John Wayne's definition. Courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway. I'm guessing that you've had times when you've saddled up anyway. But I'm guessing there's also been times when you haven't. When fear of what you didn't want kept you taking the very actions to go after what you did want. Fear does that. Fear's wired into our psychological DNA to keep us safe, to protect us from pain. If our brains weren't exquisitely wired to alert us to potential dangers, to protect us, we wouldn't be here now. In fact, MRI scans of our brains in the process of decision making, and we make about 35,000 decisions a day, give or take 2 or 3, show that our brains are twice as sensitive to potential losses as they are to potential gains. We are wired to focus on all the things that could go wrong far more than what could go right. We tend to overestimate the risks. We tend to underestimate ourselves, particularly we women, to catastrophize outcomes, to rationalize the status quo, and to discount the cost of inaction. You know, if it were easy to do those things that scared you, so many people wouldn't spend so much of their life inside their comfort zone. The truth is, it's uncomfortable to live the life that you're capable of living. It's why courage is what it takes to bridge the gap between who you are and who you could be, between the life you have and the life you most want. The latest research on leadership by Korn Ferry aligns with ancient wisdom that courage is a force multiplier of our gifts. It helps us grow into who we can be, to live and lead with all that it takes to achieve what it is that we really want in our lives. As Aristotle said, courage is the first of all virtues because it makes all others possible. The bad news: there is no shortcut to courage. There is no magic bullet to bravery. The good news? Well, courage is a skill, and like all skills, it can be learnt and mastered with practice. Just like you would go to the gym to build your muscles, you can exit your comfort zone to train the brave. And every time you do, every time you take action in the presence of your fears, often disguised as mild-mannered doubt, you reclaim the power that your fears have held over you. And as you do, you develop new neural pathways in your brain. And not only that, you develop what psychologists call affect tolerance. That is, you get more comfortable being uncomfortable. You train the brave and you expand your confidence for bigger goals and greater challenges and broaden your horizons. Growing up the big sister of 7, my own horizons didn't extend much further than our back paddock. But those years of settling up anyway, they emboldened me. First to go to university in the big city, the first gen college kid, and then after graduating to buy a backpack and head off with a round-the-world ticket for a year-long adventure. That experience, combined with many I've had over the last 30 years, have taught me that all of us, universally, regardless of the culture or country we have grown up in, we all struggle with an internal tug of war between the short-term desire for comfort and certainty and control and looking good, and our deepest desire for learning and growth and doing good. It's just that for most of human history, we didn't live in a digital fear economy glued to devices, pummeling us 24/7 with reasons to feel afraid, magnifying our sense of the dangers, stoking our doubts, driving us to turn our forecasts into fearcasts. And to quote Eleanor Roosevelt, tiptoeing gently through life, only to make it safely to death. You see, it's not the risks that we take that we tend to regret most. It's the ones that we didn't take. It's why, at the end of life, the biggest regrets people have aren't the chances they took that didn't pay off. It's the chances they didn't take. It's that they settled too fast for too little. Not just shortchanging themselves, but shortchanging the world of all that they could be. And it's why, in the long arc of our lives, we fail so much more from timidity than we ever do from overdaring. Research shows that we humans flourish and thrive the most when we're working hard toward meaningful goals. Ones that give us a sense of purpose, but ones that also, by default, invite challenges into our lives and put us at risk of feeling the very emotions that we most want to avoid: rejection, disappointment, hurt, heartache. But here's the deal. If all you do is try and protect yourself from those emotions, you ultimately make yourself more vulnerable, not less so. And less secure, not more so. It's by opening your heart and arms wide to the full, wild, and sometimes messy adventure that is life that you ultimately spare yourself the biggest risk of all. And that's looking back one day and wondering, what if? Life is a daring adventure or nothing at all, said Helen Keller. And yet all of us treat life sometimes as though it is a dress rehearsal. The fact is, while life is, you are on the adventure of a lifetime, and the truth is, none of us get out of it alive. Early on in my marriage to my husband Andrew, we decided to pursue adventure. We were living in Melbourne, Australia, and we made a competition who could land the first job outside Australia. We were thinking New York and London, Paris, maybe Shanghai, Singapore. He came home one day. I think I've got an opportunity. Papua New Guinea. It wasn't really on my mind, Papua New Guinea. In fact, a lot of people don't even know where Papua New Guinea is. But we were ready for adventure, so we packed up our life and off we moved to Port Moresby. I quickly landed work, and we had some incredible adventures. 2 years along, I was 18 weeks pregnant with our first child, the first grandchild, the first niece or nephew. And I was sitting at work one day in my office when 3 men stormed in with sawn-off shotguns. One stepped forward and, putting it to my forehead, he said, "Open the safe." "I don't know how," I said. He thrust the gun barrel further into my forehead. "Open the safe." Again, I said, "I don't know how." After a minute or so, they decided that I was telling the truth. I was. And they told me to lay face down on the ground, leaving one man to stand over me. I felt his hands go up my skirt, between my thighs. And in that moment, I was more terrified of being taken back to their village and gang raped, which was not an uncommon occurrence in Port Moresby, than I was of being killed. Minutes passed. It felt like hours. The men found the cash elsewhere. They left. 10 days later, I went for the 19-week scan. I guess I should have been able to see it in the technician's eyes, but it had never occurred to me, not once, that I might lose my baby. But I had. The timing, they said, was purely coincidental, that those two traumatic experiences would happen just 10 days apart. It rocked my world. And in the weeks and months that followed, I journaled daily as I regained my footing. And one day I arrived at the decision: I will not be defined by this experience. I will not be its victim. And I will not let my fear shrink my future. It was one of those life-defining moments as I got clarity about what I wanted and what I didn't want. You could argue that moving to PNG was too risky and that my sense of adventure had worked against me. But my 3 years living in PNG in my 20s were incredibly formative, and they nurtured in me resilience and courage and a capacity for dealing with the challenges and the heartaches that have come my way since. And there's been a few. You see, heartache is part and parcel of what it is to be human. It is part of the human condition at times to feel like the rug has been pulled out from underneath us. But when all we do is play it safe, we actually shrink our ability to deal with the challenges life brings our way. Of course, turning fear into your ally is a key way to unlock your courage. That is, asking yourself, what do I need to be afraid of if I don't take the risk? And then making the decision to step forward and do whatever it is that most inspires you. But of course, courage isn't just an intellectual exercise. Fear isn't known for its logic. I learnt this lesson when I went off to circus school for the day. It sounded like fun. Kind of did. But then I climbed the rope ladder, up, and then looking down and down, bad decision. My body froze. My fear screamed at me, climb back down. Intellectually, I knew I could not fall to my death. But my fear screamed otherwise. Fear does that. It lives in our tissues. A racing heart, shaking hands, shaking knees, a dry throat. I felt them all 20 minutes ago. I'm feeling them now. But my friends, being highly supportive as they were, started yelling out to me my book titles. Find your courage. Stop playing safe. Fear of professional humiliation won out over fear of falling to my death. So defying my inner Chicken Little, I reached out, grabbed that bar, let out an almighty scream, and I will spare you the sound effects. That day in circus school taught me two really valuable lessons. Number one, I had not missed my calling to run away and join the circus. Number two, the only way to conquer our fear is to first dare and then believe. History has taught us that we fail so much more from playing it safe and being overcautious than being over-daring. And right now is a time for us to be daring, to reimagine a future that is not defined by our past. And so for you, before you make one more decision, I invite you to consult your inner brave heart. Put your hand on your chest. Breathe in courage, breathe out fear, and ask yourself, where do you need to be braver in your one and only precious life? To take a chance, to saddle up anyway. Whatever the answer, take one step, however small, however uncomfortable. Choose courage over comfort. And then tomorrow, repeat. A year from now, you will be so glad you did.
Thank you.